Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast.
We are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry. Welcome back to the Dental and Mental Podcast. Today we have a fantastic episode for you. It is the question that is on top of every dentist's mind, which is, what CE should I take? And today we're going to go through 5 questions so that you can vet the next CE course you're going to take and decide whether it's the best next step for you.
Heck yeah. It's going to be a great episode. So the 5 questions, we'll give you kind of a quick little rundown of what those 5 questions are, and then let's jump into the first. So the first is what? What CE should you be taking? We're going to really come at this from the perspective of what is your very next step, right? You don't want to be taking 10 steps ahead of where you're at right now. You want to be getting kind of glittery-eyed by something that sounds really cool, seems really awesome for somebody else, but maybe it's not correct for your practice. The next is who you're going to be learning from. So you got to be focusing on who's the right instructor, who's the right leader for taking you to that next level. The third piece is why you're doing it in the first place. Why do you want to take this particular CE? And what that's really going to have a lot to do with is your practice metrics, your practice ROI. Like, can you actually put this skill set to use in your practice and help real people and increase the profitability of your practice? Number 4 is how. How are you actually going to implement it back in your practice? It could be that you're learning an awesome new system from somebody else and it sounds great, but you come back in and you're going to meet with team resistance. You're going to meet with maybe you don't have the same new patient flow or whatever else it is. Your practice style might not be accommodating to that. So we're going to take that into account as well. The final part is the ROI. The price of the CE in comparison to what you're actually going to get from it.
Yep, absolutely. These are the things that we need to be asking because as dentists, and we see it all the time from a coaching perspective, and because we're in the CE space ourselves, that dentists really love to learn something new and they get a lot of shiny object syndrome, right?
Yes.
You don't want to have FOMO and be the only person who doesn't know the latest and greatest skill set. But is it the best use of your money? So we're going to help you decide that.
So let's start with the first one. What is the correct CE to be taking next? So this can be obviously incredibly varied based upon the practitioner. Every single person is going to have a slightly different answer. But what are some of the key ways that we can start to look at ourselves and be very self-aware so that we're taking, we talk about success all the time, how success literally means the next step. To be successful, it's taking the next step in sequential order, a bunch of those, right? Versus jumping all around. So how does a person look at themselves appropriately?
Do you know if you're self-aware? I know I'm very self-aware. Like,
so self-aware.
I'm very self-aware. I know right now that my legs are ashy. I know that, right? I don't know if the camera's picking up on it, but
it's
hopefully
it's
not.
Above. Yeah.
But the point is, like, do you know? I was watching this girl the other day on TikTok and she was like talking and she had the hairiest arms I had ever seen in my life. Nobody even heard what she was saying. And I was like, is anybody else seeing this? Go to the comments. Nobody heard a word that she was saying. They were just like, oh my gosh, what's going on with your arms, right? Like, and maybe she didn't care. Or maybe it was a lack of self-awareness. We'll never know.
It was for the views.
It was for the views. Yeah, that was a hook in itself, was these hairy arms are my hook to my TikTok video, right?
For sure.
So, but you have to, are you self-aware? So when you're vetting the next CE, are you a person who is doing a few fillings, right? You're not even doing quadrant dentistry yet. You're doing some fillings, a few extractions, and you're like, yes, I think I would like to learn full mouth rehabs. Not a self-aware person.
Yes. Well,
right? So
let's talk a little bit about how and why that can happen. It can happen when there's an incredible gap between where you want to be and where you are, and there's an impatience that builds. So I see this a lot. I see this a lot in docs who either want to work with us or who I just meet at a conference or wherever else where they have this desire for their practice, and it's really easy to have visions and dreams. It just is. It's really easy to be like, oh, in 5 years, we're going to be doing this, this, and this, and I can't wait to blah, blah, blah. And then what ends up happening is that's not happening fast enough, and they don't want to do the kind of boring stuff to make that happen, right?
Right.
And what's the boring stuff? The boring stuff is what's that very next thing, and then do a bunch of that. And get really good at that, and then do the next level up and do a bunch of that. It's like when I do one of these, and I want to do like 3 of these, and you just want to keep skipping the steps. And that's just not the way it works.
It's the fastest way to nowhere.
Yeah, what do we say? We say that a shortcut is the longest distance between 2 points. And that's exactly what it is.
And a lot of wasted money. And the whole point of this episode is to help you invest your money in CE that is actually going to bring you an ROI.
Yeah. So I think you want to be looking at a course that genuinely is going to challenge you to be better. And what does better look like? Let me give you a couple of really easy, simple things to look at. First, comprehensive is better than single tooth, guys. It just is. Okay. Because comprehensive is what the patient needs. So I would always look at it from the perspective of, if I'm going to take a CE, is it going to make me more comprehensive in diagnosis, treatment plan, and presentation? Period in a story. If it's going to be doing that, great. That's a great first metric. The second is, do you have this equipment in your practice? And if you don't, can you afford to buy that equipment?
Great.
Plus the education.
Great.
So really simple, practical things, like ask those questions first. If you're going to go to an implant course, then you're like, oh my gosh, it doesn't come include these things, and I have to go buy all this armamentarium, and I also have to train my team around this stuff. And you start looking at all these different things that are going to come from that, but you're also not diagnosing any single teeth like that need to be filled. Like there's a space there. You're going to be doing some maybe overdentures, things like that. Like you're not doing anything that way that's more comprehensive in nature that will make it an ROI. That's a problem, right? So
Dylan and I just saw a video today, and it was talking about adding an extra $450,000 to your bottom line of your practice if you just go do all on fours. And so this is the trap of social media, and this is where why we're talking about self-awareness, is that getting trapped in, oh my gosh, if I go and take an all-on-4 course, I'm going to now turn my $250,000 practice into a $700,000 practice.
Right. Well, and let's just be honest. As an industry, as a field, I don't think that we really like to look too much at the downside terribly often, and we should. You look at implants and overdentures. It's sad. The average lifespan of an implant is 8 years. And that's because so many people are taking it that don't do enough of them. They don't get really good at it. And you're not picking correctly. You're just like, let's pop it in there. I saw this on Instagram, I'm going to do it too. And you take your Weekend Warrior course and you go do it. And honestly, it's wrong. It's not what's right for the patient. Second, I do a lot of full mouth rehabilitations. And I know what occlusion needs to be.
What's a lot?
Like 50 plus a year.
I'm asking because that's one of the questions that we're going to be talking about when you're vetting your instructors. I'm vetting mine right now.
Yeah, girl. And I was just talking to a client of mine who I've been teaching to do a lot of the same stuff. And he's done a couple overdentures. And he didn't know this about me, but he wrote me and he's like, man, I just don't know if I really like doing overdentures. He's like, I've done a couple of these cases, a couple of hybrids, a couple of overdentures. He's like, I just don't think I like them very much. Is there something wrong with me? And I wrote him back and I was like, I hate them. I mean, I'll do them, but I don't like them because I don't do enough of them. And it just doesn't grab me, right? So if I might look at the dollar amount and be like, this is going to be amazing. It's going to change my practice. But if you haven't done a couple, you might not realize that, to get your money back and to transform your practice, you're going to have to do a whole lot of the things that you hate. You might not know that.
Right.
So that's why it's better to slow yourself down and do something incrementally towards a more comprehensive and profitable practice, because that's the way that you know whether you like it or not. And also, everyone talks about burnout nowadays. A lot of burnout comes from making incorrect decisions.
Absolutely.
That's where it comes from.
Yep.
And so you stack up bad decisions and you're overwhelmed by those and the stress that comes from them, and you start to call it burnout. It's like, we should have slowed down. You should have made a better decision. That's what it came down to. So now you have to unravel that ball of yarn, That's what it comes down to.
Yep.
So
let's say that we've now picked a perfect course for us. One that makes sense is the next step in our journey as a dentist. We're super stoked about it. What's the next question we need to ask ourselves?
The next question is, who do you learn from? Right? So you've got to pick somebody who is clinically relevant. Meaning, there's a lot of layers to this, but I think the biggest piece is this somebody that you would want to emulate, right? Is the way that they practice that particular skill set something that if you could plug and play into your practice, you'd be on fire. You'd be like, yes, that's exactly it. I am lit, right?
Right.
So if you find somebody, let's say, who's really good at the technique, but they are doing, okay, let's just take veneers for a second, okay? They're doing veneers and you're like, gosh, that's so beautiful. It's absolutely incredible. Then you find out that they have an in-house ceramist, which you don't have. And you find out that their practice is one where they get to cherry pick all the best cases. And they have 3 associates. And you don't have any of those. You have no associates, it's just you. So you have all the bread and butter dentistry that still has to be serviced. And then you look at their schedule, and their schedule is 2 days a week, and you're working 5. And they have no debt, and you have a lot of debt. Suddenly, that might not be the best person to learn from. Even though they're great and everything they do is just gorgeous, it might not be the best choice because of the first question, which is that's not the next iteration for you. You should find somebody who's closer to where you're at.
Right. Or if you are a person that is, you know what, I just want to spend my money to get hot and bothered. I actually...
You never know when.
Again, back to the self-awareness, right? Maybe you just want to spend your money to get hot and bothered. To your point, you haven't asked yourself these questions. Just be aware that you're going to go and spend a $3,000 CE course just so you can look at somebody else's stuff and be like, that's amazing. Now I'm going to go back and I'm not going to implement or do any of this, nor can I, as long as you understand that that weekend was a fun weekend full of no ROI for your practice, then get on with it, right?
Yeah.
But understand that that's the choice that you're making. But that's what we're here for today, is to help you make good choices. And it doesn't mean that that $3,000 on that fun weekend is a bad choice, as long as you know what you're buying.
There are cheap thrills and there are expensive thrills.
Exactly.
It might be an expensive thrill.
Exactly.
Okay.
And maybe that's what you want to do. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But
no, I think that's a great point.
Right?
I mean, the opposite can be true. You can be learning from somebody that, I'm sorry, is in academia, or is essentially retired from dentistry and is now kind of teaching what they had learned throughout their process. And that could be great. Both have merit to some degree. But I know for myself, I'll just speak for myself, running a very busy practice with an associate and a partner, seeing 100 new patients a month plus. No, I don't want to learn from somebody in academia. You have no clue what it's like to run a practice like me. You have none. Sorry. Doesn't matter how good you are. You just don't get it. So you taking these trippy photos and spending 6 hours to do a case, that doesn't work in my world.
Right.
So I have to pick and choose a person that I'm like, you're ahead of me a little bit, and I want to emulate that. And there's enough of what you can teach me that I don't have and I can grow from. So I think that's a huge piece, is who you're learning from. It's massive. I don't think we ask that question very often.
Right. I mean, we've talked about this before, but sitting in a Newton Fall course, I was like, this is the most amazing, beautiful artwork that I've ever seen. I did not sign up to go to Brazil because I was in public health. I didn't have the time for it. I couldn't charge for it. A busy public health clinic too. Right. It wasn't, the long appointments with no budget. So the materials are not something that I could have afforded at that time. The time was not, nor did I think that that was my next step from public health, was to become Newton Fall.
Right.
So when I went to learn resin veneers, it was from somebody who was like, we are using a single shade and we are getting this done.
Right.
And that worked really well for me. And I was able to use it in public health in a super cool way. But I also knew that Newton Fall wasn't my next step.
Yes.
Even though it was really, really cool. And I was just mesmerized by the artwork.
Yeah. And which I think is a perfectly fine reason for doing something. Really. I mean, if you think about it, it's actually a bit of why we spend time on social media. It's the cheap thrill. You're not paying for anyone's stuff. You're looking at some beautiful cases. You're looking at some before and afters. You're looking at a process. And, I mean, you might, we're probably all guilty of this. You're saving posts and you're like, man, I'm going to come back to that. You probably don't go back to it. Let's just be honest.
It's like recipes.
I am
I'm never going to make a beef Wellington.
But damn it, I'll tell you what.
But that
Gordon Ramsay looks, that Gordon Ramsay recipe looks legit.
It does.
A beef Wellington. Yeah. So, I mean, it's fine. You can have that. But when you're this whole podcast is about how you spend money well. Because it's going to cost you something to take these courses. And so you want to spend it in a way that genuinely, it has to have an ROI. And the ROI can be a cheap thrill, and that's the ROI you're getting. Or it could be that you really want to make money from this and you want to better the patient care that you're able to deliver. And you want to have higher confidence and you don't want to be fumbling through your price and what things cost. And you want to document your work better because that'll better your pre-sale so that when people come in, they already are pre-educated about what you do. Like those are all great ROIs, and we should be looking at it through that lens a lot more instead of just taking something because your friend did.
Right. So which brings us to number 3.
It does. Piggybacks very much off what we just talked about. I think these two are really closely related, which is it's really the why. So we're talking about the how do you implement this now into your practice, but it's also a lot to do with the financial side of things. So we were talking about this earlier. If you're going to a CE, I can probably count on one hand and probably 2 fingers how many times I've heard a dentist ask a financial question in a CE event, which is shocking to me.
So what is the third question that we need to be asking?
So the third question we should be asking is, what do you charge and how do you sell? Right? What are you charging for this particular procedure that you're teaching me how to do? And how are you getting people to say yes to it so that you can do more of it and get really good at it? Right?
Right.
And that's not a question dentists ask. And I don't know if it's that because they feel like it's invasive or if they feel like they're just not going to get an answer to that. My sneaking suspicion is that we're so glamorized by what's happening, like the process. We're mechanical people. We went to school. We like working with our hands. It's like we get so fixated on how something's being done and kind of geeking out over that it's not until you get back to your practice and you hit the ground running on Monday or Tuesday and you realize how hard it is to actually present that.
Well, I think that we don't ask because we're not allowed to. From a polite society, that feels like a very rude question to ask.
Okay.
Right? It's like going to somebody's house and being like, I love your dress. How much did it cost? In polite society, you've never asked that question. And so to me, it kind of feels like it's a cultural thing that it's an unwritten rule that we're not allowed to ask, what do you charge for that? And I think that needs to be broken down, especially in an education space, because if you're going to go and take that back to your practice, you should be allowed to ask your instructor, how do we charge for this? How are you billing for this? Do you have a heavily insurance practice? Like, what are we doing here? How am I going to take this and use it in my practice to make money and to serve my patients? And we should be allowed to ask that. And we're putting it out there because we want you to ask that question.
I love this question. Now, I kind of like this question because I can give very good answers to it. If I was struggling, I wouldn't like it.
Yes, if you weren't charging, if all of your beautiful dentistry was done for free, you probably wouldn't tell anybody.
Well,
these 4 cases that you see on rotation for a full year and a half were done for free on my paid models. You're not going to want to give that information.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we were chatting about this, you and I and Dylan, earlier, and it's a slight segue, but it very much ties into this, where I just see so many people that I have had conversations with very recently because they reached out to you and I because they're hurting financially in their practice. And they're like, I don't know how to, I got 3 new patients a month and, I'm worried about my debt and I'm stressed about things. And then 2-3 weeks later, they're starting a course, teaching you how to run their practice. And I don't say anything because, trying to be chivalrous, but I want to just yell.
You guys would actually not believe how often this happens. And this is why this is why we're putting these questions out there, because if you're going to spend your money with somebody, you are owed these answers.
Yes. It is the ultimate of being out of integrity. It's the ultimate version of that. And I think we need to start applying pressure to people like that because it's just wrong. It's right. It boils my blood. It does. And so I like the questions. I invite those questions. I talk a lot about money. You talk a lot about money because we've gone through it, right? We've asked people these questions. We've had people who have answered it. We've had people who have fumbled around, and we've had people who have denied us that answer.
Well, I think early on too, we had to go completely outside of dentistry to be able to have these conversations. So we hired a lot of people, a lot of coaches in particular, around the topic of finance because it's so taboo to talk about in dentistry.
Yeah.
About making money, about what a successful practice looks like, about selling dentistry, about having hard conversations from a financial perspective with patients. Like we had to go completely outside of the industry to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, if it's shocking to me. So we've talked about this. I have a question that I ask in pretty much every CE that I go to. And I ask it, but I'm also paying attention to how they answer it. I will ask them very candidly, what do you charge for this procedure? And hopefully I get a good answer, right? I charge this amount. Once they say that, I want to hear how they're saying it, how they're presenting it to a patient. Because those two things can sometimes be different. A person's like, oh yeah, no, this is $30,000 for an arch. Okay, cool. How do you present it to them? And then they kind of fumble around and you're like, oh, you know your number, but your financial team is the one presenting it. You don't. And that can be fine. If that works in your practice, great. But it goes back to what is your practice style? That's kind of our fourth question. Like, how do you implement this now into your practice? Is your practice like theirs? So I really love to drill down on these kinds of questions. If a person asks me any number in my practice, I don't just know the prices for all of the things and the services in my practice, from a night guard to a full arch to everything in between. I know every number. But I also know the KPIs of our practice weekly. I can tell you what my case acceptance is. I can tell you how much treatment I've presented. I can tell you what my associate's doing. I can tell you what my partner's doing. I can tell you what we did on the year. I know what our collections is. Those things matter. They matter a great deal. And I think most dentists walk around very, very financially ignorant until it starts to come, the rooster comes to roost.
Right. And that's part of it, is that we want you to be a fantastic clinician, but we also want you to be the CEO of your business. Mm-hmm. We had a conversation just a couple of weeks ago with a CEO of multiple companies. And when you see a CEO operate to the point, they know metrics.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It is work up the model. Let me see where it's going. Future pace this for me, and then I will make a decision.
Yep.
It is not, CEOs do not make decisions from, oh, Hamidi, I saw a post. I think I'll do that too. Like that is not.
Oh, love that. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Right. And so we're doing this podcast because we want you to be a fantastic clinician, but we also want you to be the CEO of your business.
They're quick, which is interesting.
They're so quick.
A CEO is quick.
Quick.
And it doesn't mean that they make rash decisions. It's that they've done so much pre-deciding, so much pre-work, that when you present them with information, that's what we're going to do. And I love that. That's why they're so fun to be around.
They're so fun to be around.
Right? Yeah. And that's very, very different than a person who has to think about it and go talk to their spouse and you're like, okay, well, or whatever, move on. And that is, I think in CE in general, this might be the most important thing. Of all the questions to ask, you're now in it, right? You've picked the CE, you found the person, you know this is your next step. When you're there, go get your money's worth. Ask all these very hard questions. Ask the questions and pay attention to how they're answering, right? And really see, is there integrity there? Because if there is, that's a person that you might want to be mentored by in that, especially if that's a skill set that you can really run with. But if it's not, that should show you something, right?
Right.
And so that kind of leads into our fourth piece, which is, how do you now implement this particular skill set into your practice? Like, how do you ensure that the style of practice that you have is in integrity with what you just learned? And the reason why this matters is that you can have a skill set based CE, right? You're learning class 4, whatever. But it's eventually going to have to fit into a system, into a practice style and mode. And that came from the skill set you learned, came from somebody else's system and mode. So are those in integrity with one another? Do those work with one another? And if not, that particular course is where you grill that instructor to figure out, if they were in my practice and my style is different, what would you do there? And they should be able to think on their feet and be able to tell you, well, this is what I would do. We do this all the time, right? All of our live events, I'll take any person's practice style. You will do the same thing. This is what I would do with this. This is how I would say this. Oh, okay. You have 3 associates. You have no associates. Okay, here's what I would do here. Here's what I would do here.
Yep, because we've helped people build so many different styles of practice. We've had boutique practices. We have practices that were heavily insurance-based at one point. We've had people switch from general dentistry to a specialized dentistry. And so how do you implement the skill set with a shifting schedule, shifting team, shifting waters, whatever the case may be?
Right.
Should be able to figure that out so that you can develop a system to implement that skill set into your practice.
You know, some practices are analog still. Others are very digital. Some have 16 to 20 team members. Others have 1 to 2. Those are really, really different. One's in rural, Missouri. Another one's in downtown Manhattan or Chicago. Completely different, right? And so learning that skill set, while it seems like, every clinician can do a class 4, and you can plug that into anything. Yes and no. Like, you're going to hear very, very different things from different patients. And so how you verbalize those things, your price point, where you set it at, what it leads to next, how do you present comprehensive when you see that sort of thing, different for each of these styles. So I think it's a really critical piece to have whoever your instructor is, whoever you're learning from, really put them to the test. And that's kind of what we're getting at. Like, you should be pushing to get every last dollar out of your CE.
Squeeze that juice.
Squeeze it, baby. And a good instructor wants that.
Absolutely.
Our biggest complaint for you and I both with anyone is you just don't use us as much as we could be used. If there's anything that I would tell dentists, I'm like, use me more. Ask me more questions.
Right.
Because
absolutely.
That's what we're here for. We're here to help you. I'm here to help you game plan. I'm here to help you iterate. I'm here to help you when you tried this, it didn't quite work, and now we fix this. But, you got to use us. And so I think most CEs, you don't get that.
And that's the other, this is like not on topic at all, but when you have that relationship and you have somebody that you can continue to ask those questions with and to and bounce those ideas back and forth, it does prevent you from feeling so alone in dentistry. Because you get to build with somebody, right? So you're not just sitting there isolated when something isn't working. If you have an instructor who you can go and ask those things to, you get to move out of that place really quickly.
Yeah.
And on to the next. And that's one of the things that keeps people excited about dentistry is feeling and having true momentum.
I love that. My first CE ever actually was at the CEE in Chicago, and I went to go see Jason Smithson talk. Did I say it? Jason Smithson. Yeah. And it was such a weird experience for me because I had heard about him. I knew he was just like a great guru of composite and everything else, British and all the rest. But when I sat down at lunch, like 2 chairs away from him, there was that feeling of like, I'm next to a celebrity. And like, I had this very bizarre feeling in my body. And truly it was like, this is even somebody who is like, a hero of mine. It's just that I'm next to somebody who's really good at what they do. Mm-hmm. And being able to ask him a few questions at lunch, to your point, it made me feel like I was a part of something much bigger than my little practice back in New Mexico, That's a really important thing. And I didn't even get like mentorship beyond that or like his cell phone number, And that's really different with a lot of different CEs you can take where you do get that kind of community from other providers and your instructors.
Oh, yeah.
It's powerful.
Absolutely. This is not dental specific, but when you and I hired basically our first money coach, it is extremely expensive to work with him. 4 hours back then, 10 years ago, would cost you $25,000.
Yep.
So he would do 4 hours, $25,000, which we did not have. So he had
as long as it took me to do a crown.
So he had these open mic sessions, and
that's right,
the events were pretty inexpensive to go to. But if you wanted private time, it was really expensive.
Correct.
So during these open mic sessions, I went up there and I would embarrass myself relentlessly every single time because I'm like, sir, I cannot afford 4 hours. So during this included question time, I'm going to go up and air out all my dirty laundry, ask all the questions that I need to ask, and I am going to get my money's worth every single time. And that really paid off because I got some good questions answered, which shortened the timeline in a lot of ways so that eventually we could afford to hire him for 4 hours.
Yeah. 100%. And you know what's kind of cool about that? I'll finish with this, then we can go to the next and final question. Is that when you are an instructor, a coach, or a mentor, and you don't have as much integrity, and you maybe have some imposter syndrome, and there's not a well to your knowledge base, you kind of dread those questions, right? And what you tend to do is you nickel and dime people. You're trying to get the most out of the people in your course versus wanting them to get the most out of you.
I love that.
Very different.
Yeah.
With this particular gentleman, he was willing to give essentially for free, and these little like live 3-day events for like $500 or something like that. Something stupid.
Yep.
And he would give for free all day long. Why? Because he was bottomless. Like you were not going to get to the end of that. And he knew that. So if you were the kind of person who took that and ran with it and grew, you were going to get to a point where that wasn't going to suffice and you would need more of him.
You would come back and hire him
And
for
you would hire
$25K.
him,
You would
and-
come back and hire him for $100K.
Yep, which we did. And it's because you grew incrementally successful and more successful, you could afford that and you wanted to afford that. So again, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for an instructor who's not trying to milk you for everything you've got. You want an instructor who wants you to milk them for everything that they have.
I love that. That's really beautiful.
Last one. ROI. Let's just talk dollars and cents here. You brought this up. It's great. You can go to one of the big CEs that to Occlusion, one of the big continuums. You can drop 50 grand, 60 grand on all the different steps of it. And you can travel and spend weeks. And you can get out of this thing for 150, 200 grand in lost production plus the course plus all the rest, right? And like so many that graduate from this particular, a number of them, do almost no dentistry, right? And so from a dollars to cents perspective, you might be smarter, but you definitely don't implement. So not sure it was worth it.
And I'm just going to say it because I don't practice clinically, so I don't care. Stop trying to, I see your TikToks because I'm on social media. I see your Instagram posts. Stop trying to teach me stuff when I know you're not doing it. Stop it. Stop going to those continuums and then becoming a international lecturer after you get your certificate. I don't want it. I don't want it. And it's massively out of integrity. Go back, work on your patients, sell your cases, and build up to being that person. I don't care if you're an authority. Like, be an authority. That's great. Teach people, but teach people from a place of being at the top of the mountain, not shouting from base camp, being like, turn left up there. That is wild work. That is wild work.
Well, it's because this like whole idea and paradigm of fake it till you make it became like an identity. And people were
yes,
like,
please.
yeah.
I would love my brain surgeon to fake it until he makes it. Right. Wild. Yeah, I am getting animated.
You don't want a nose job from somebody who's faking it till they make it?
No, I certainly do not. I don't. And I didn't get my nose job from a person who faked it until they made it. So here we are. I vetted him.
I mean,
do you see my profile?
It's pretty damn good. We know he didn't fake it. I think we should flip it. I think you make it until you don't have to fake it. Like you go put in the fucking work.
You do.
It's just silly to me. It's silly to me that we ever adopted this. It became a notion for people who are like, well, I want to be visible. I need people to know. I need to get people to come see me so I can get good at what I do. So I have to pretend like I'm good at this thing. It's a social media visibility plague only. Until that, you just did the work. You just did it and you did it and you did it. And however slow it was until you got to a place where you were good enough that then by word of mouth, people were like, that guy or that gal's the best, Right. And we need to get back to that to some degree. I don't care if you're blank trained or not. Couldn't care less. I don't care if you've got an accreditation and whatever. I don't care.
Right.
And you know what? My patients don't either. None of my patients care. You know how many times my patients have asked me where I trained? Not once. Not once in almost 15 years. You know how many times they've asked me if I'm accredited with blah, blah, blah? They don't fucking know. And they don't care. Stop spending your money that way, guys. Just don't. Sorry to all those academies and everything. It just ain't worth it.
I'm not even bashing them. I'm just saying that if you're going to go and you're going to do
it,
right,
because you think that that's what's going to make you successful. It's not against those. We should be clear.
Yes, it's not against those.
But I will say this: it's been advertised like that really helps you. Like there are places on these sites at different academies and institutions and centers and all the rest. It says find a blank doctor, and it's a drop-down tab, as if patients are searching that. No, they're not. No, they're not. Maybe once in a blue moon you find somebody. I've never found it once. So I don't think advertising it like that's some great ROI for going to this. It's just not true. I'm sorry. It's not. Hate to burst the bubble. Don't care what kind of flack we get. It's just like I'm in this for my friends and my colleagues. And it's a waste of your freaking dollars. It is. Do it because you want to get better. And if you've got that kind of liquidity and you've got that stage in your practice where that's what you want to pour yourself into and you don't really care about the ROI from that perspective, great.
Totally.
Go do it. Have a great time.
100%.
And that's who we've seen be successful from it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So yeah, I don't think it is a knock to those things, but this conversation is about being intentional with every dollar that you spend on CE. So if it is a $500 course, just do a little micro calculation. Again, CEO mentality. Could I make $1,000 from this course if I spend $500? Probably a good ROI, right?
We've got a $500 course right now, and it's going to make you immensely more than that if you can just bet on yourself a little tiny bit. Like you'd actually kind of have to be stupid to get that money back. For sure.
We've seen it time and time again. But that's what we want you to do with any CE that you're going to. Just vet it. And from a CEO perspective, is this going to give you an ROI? We've ran through 5 different questions that you guys can really filter your next CEO move from. Be intentional about what you're taking. Can you implement it into your practice? Can you have conversations with your patients to help them understand the value? And is it at a price point that you know that you're going to make money from it?
Yeah. I'll finish with 2 things. I think the first piece is that you should be a CEO of your practice, career, and lifestyle, regardless of whether or not you own a practice.
Oh, yeah, agreed. If you're an associate, that does not mean that you're still a CEO. Like, make no mistake about it. We were both in public health. Absolutely.
You and I were both in public health, and I got a lot of love for public health, actually, because of that time and phase of my life. And I also always knew that I wanted to own. I always knew I wanted autonomy, and I wanted the freedom of making choices and designing a practice that really was a statement of who I am. And so all those steps, right? The little attention to detail in that particular course that I took and little things like some of these questions we've asked, like how much do you charge for that? And how do you say that? What do you say when they say this? When your patient says they don't have enough money for that, what do you say? What's your secondary option? Those are the kind of questions that I was asking that no one else was. And it's a big part of why I am where I am now. So, and that was all done when I was not an owner. I was an associate. I was in public health. I just wanted to be better. Mm-hmm. But I was cataloging all those skills. That's a really critical piece. So no matter where you are, I think you can definitely take a lot from this. The second thing and last thing, our CE company has our tagline, which is it's CE that blows your mind, but not your paycheck, right?
Yeah, it's the best.
It is the best. And we got courses that are, $100, $500. And these are the things that you can buy a bunch of them if you wanted to. But the reason I bring it up is that we don't need to charge $50,000 for our courses. Don't need to. You know why? Because I'm really successful as a dentist. And I think that's one of the things that I see so much of now is that there's these price tags and these people out there that are selling CE because they can't hack it in the practice, which is twofold problem. Number one, that's the person who's going to milk you for what they want versus you being able to milk them for what you need. And secondarily, it's also the kind of person that you're not going to be able to learn very much from because they're not doing it day in and day out. As Devin says, they're not a wet finger dentist, which is so gross. I get it.
I hate that. Those are the 5 questions that we want you to run your next CE decision through. And we really do want you to invest your money intentionally because we want to see you succeed. It's all boats rise when the tides rise. Is that the, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. When the tide rises, all boats rise. All boats rise with the tide.
look, we're just trying to make dentistry fun again. And it only works if there are people out there to have fun with.
Tide or die. Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review up to 5 stars? And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.